Hi everybody, this is Craig Tanner for The Mindful Eye and the Daily Critique, and yes, we are inside of Photoshop, and not just any old Photoshop. It's CS4, the latest version of Photoshop. So I want to do two things today. I want to respond to a lot of requests that I've gotten to start to do this every once in a while, to do the editing changes to the images live so you can see the Photoshop work that I'm doing, and you'll get a chance to see some of the new features of CS4. And to me, some of the coolest things are just user experience changes that Adobe made. It just makes it a lot easier to do the editing. And I'll show you one of those things right away. This image right here is just a slide that introduces this feature on the Mindful Eye Daily Critique. And then I have another image that's open, and that's today's image that was submitted by Bill, who's a beginning photographer from Australia. So a real cool thing here, if I've got multiple images that are open, the images show up right here in one window pane. I don't have to go hunt and peck or use a screen mode change or go behind one image to find another one. All the images are right here. So if I click here, then we bring up Bill's image submission, and then I can go back to the opening slide, two different images. For me as a landscape photographer, I love this workflow. So many times I'll have 2 or 3 different exposures I've bracketed from the tripod that I'm blending together to extend dynamic range, and I love having them all up here. I can click on one image, copy the contents of that, open up the other image, paste that image in, so on and so forth. Just a neat workflow thing. Let me give you a little bit of backstory and metadata on this one. Bill went out to shoot sunrise, got a great sunrise shot, and then was coming back to the campground, and this storm started to come in. And so Bill ended up with this incredible storm light, dark clouds moving in, and then real warm light shining against that. Very dramatic, and Bill says this didn't last for long at all. Within 15 minutes it was pouring down rain. And Bill said that one of the things that he was trying to do here is create movement and a vanishing point back in this part of the image, and that he really likes these shadows. He says he'd like for them to be darker, so that's one of the things that we're going to do when we edit the image. Bill shot this with a Pentax K10D, and he used a 50 to 135 zoom at 50 millimeters and exposed the file at f8 for 60th of a second at ISO 100. One of the first things that I love about this image is the quality of light, and I also really love these diagonal shadows. I just love the way Bill's worked with camera placement to not only include these, but to make them very dynamic, moving on diagonals, leading me out to the main subject, the light on the shoreline and the trees, and then I love the way this vanishes and takes me down. I like this area right here. It's on a sort of classical dynamic third in the image, and it's one of the real strong anchor points, this beautiful high contrast shape. And I also like this idea and this idea. To me, these two ideas play off of each other in a really beautiful way. And when I start to think about perfect world improvement for this image, let's just sort of go through a workflow that we might go through for editing the image. I like to do my cloning first if I can figure out where I may have something that I want to clone. And there are really 3 areas in here that I'd like to clone. I'd like to clone these 2 high contrast things out. If you're open to changing the editorial content of the image, these are really drawing my eye, and they're taking away from the form of the trees. I'd also like to do something else. This is such a strong, simple idea, and this could mimic it with the exception of this place on the tree trunk down here where you get a shadow or an opening or a hole, and I'd like to smooth that out so that this idea can rhyme more with this idea. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy the background layer. You could use Apple J on a Mac, Control J on a PC. Let me zoom into this image quite a bit, and I'm going to need to move it here so we can see what we're doing. Cool feature number 2 inside of Photoshop, I'm going to make the clone stamp active. Could have done that by hitting the S key shortcut. Once I have the clone stamp active, it's a tool where if I hold down Option or Alt and I then click, I sample those pixels, and then I can take those pixels and move them somewhere else and change something, make it go away, stamp over it. What's cool, very cool now, is that inside of CS4, if I come down here and Option click, and you're already seeing what's happening, if I Option click here and then move that, it shows me the pixels that I'm going to be stamping when I click again to stamp down. It lets me line things up. It lets me know if the information I'm moving is going to help me or not, and that's super cool. So I'm going to click there and get rid of that thing. I'm going to Option click right here, and then I'm going to move those pixels over to here, and I'm going to option click and make that go away. And now let's move right over here. See if I can get there from here. I can. My video card's doing some strangeness there, so just ignore that for right now. Now what I'm going to do in a rough way, because I'm trying to show you a lot today, I'm going to use the clone stamp to get rid of this feeling of the tree having this opening in it. And I'm going to do this in a very rough way. There we go. And now I'm going to make the image smaller. And so we're done with the cloning part that I wanted to do. And let me turn that on and off and see what you think so far. Okay, now